Hey guys, I am Trent for Trent Sense, and I am in the middle of a hotel room in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to tell all of you guys my thoughts on the Motorola Milestone. Looking back on my decision to go with the Milestone for review, I believe was only inspired by my need to go back to the most fundamental root stock version of the Android operating system. On top of my wanting to go back to the stock Google Android experience, I also wanted to have a device that could offer a hardware QWERTY keypad. And at the time, the Milestone seemed to be the best, if not only bet, that was compatible with the AT&T 3G network. Now, when I first turned on the Milestone, I found it to be programmed for a Spanish-speaking country, so I of course had to change the language, which was very easy. My first impressions of the build quality was that it was very sturdy, very solid. There were no signs of creaking or bending anywhere, and I really did like the fact that it felt and looked like a tank in my hand. That the last thing that ever crossed my mind was beautiful. It's not really a beautiful phone. There is no kind of curvature to the design. It's basically just, sharp corners and hard lines that go throughout the whole entire phone. And I really did like the soft touch feel of the backing of the battery door. Just like on earlier Android models, there was indeed a chin added to the Milestone, but I personally didn't see any problem with it, even when I had it in landscape mode and I was typing on the hardware QWERTY. Now, in regards to the pops of color that came from the golden, bronzish looking accents on the device, I really didn't find them to be gaudy at all. I really thought that they did a lot to take away from the monotony of the blackness of the phone. The first big problem that I ran into was that I could not get access to the AT&T network for data. I had to do a Google search, and I ran into a forum site that gave me settings to input for the APN on the phone. And after I did that, I was able to access AT&T 3G with no problem. After dealing with the GPS headache of the Captivate, I of course wanted to find out how the Milestone measured up, and I am happy to say that GPS was stellar. It was perfect. Nothing was wrong with it whatsoever out of the box. Speaking of GPS on the Milestone, I was also surprised to see that the Google Navigation app was automatically installed on the phone instead of the MotoNav alternative from Motorola.
In 400 feet, turn right at Colonial Avenue. Your destination is on the right.
Upon taking my time to set up the desktop screens, which could go up to 9 on the Milestone, I found out that there were some other features that I had been missing on the Captivate, such as a physical camera shutter button, a dual LED flash on the camera, as well as a simple notification light. The loudspeaker proved to be a bit tinny in its overall feedback. It provided a lot of sound for volume, but at the same time, it lacked the vivid quality that I was used to having on the Nokia N900, the E90, and even the Captivate for that matter.
Set out to try and persuade the Labour Party that they would have to make concessions to what he called.
As I expected, the smaller TFT display on the Milestone, it was only reliable for short YouTube videos. If I wanted to have that same kind of experience with the Captivate with Super AMOLED, I wasn't going to get it, especially when it came to watching full-featured films. sound quality from the loudspeaker was not too bad, I have to say that it was a little bit worse on the earpiece. On voice calls, I often ran into a problem where there was echoing on the device, and I basically had to hang up the phone and then call back to get rid of it. There was even a situation where another person on the other end let me know that my voice wasn't as loud or as clear as what he was used to when I had the Captivate. Getting overall signal reception from AT&T was not bad at all. I mean, it basically was on the same level as my Captivate, so I had no problems. The 5-megapixel camera proved to be a disappointment to me, even with taking still shots. Even with autofocus on the Milestone, the pictures came out grainy and in other cases very blurry, and I just didn't understand it. Even with the LED flash being there, it was not able to redeem the quality of the pictures from being grainy, and that was really a huge letdown. Quite honestly, I did not take any time to shoot any video from the camera because I figured it was going to be either on the same level as the Nexus 1, which didn't come with HD quality footage. So as a result, I felt there was no point in shooting any footage to test out. With that being said, the interface of the camera was very easy to understand, and I felt that it was no different than what I was used to on the Captivate. Battery life was no different than a Captivate in being able to grant me at least one full day of typical usage. One thing that made me excited about the Milestone was the availability of accessories that were custom made for that particular model. This brought me back to the time that I had used the Nexus 1, where I had a car dock and a desktop dock that fit the device perfectly. As for the hardware keypad, it really wasn't that bad. After I put forth effort to lower my expectations and really understand the keyboard for what it was, I grew to like it after a while. Unfortunately, this honeymoon period with the hardware keyboard was not to last too long. I found that the reason why I didn't have trouble with the cramped spacing of the overall layout was that I had thumbnails that allowed me to zero in to a key to be able to press it. But after I clipped my nails, I found that relying on my thumb tips, which are broad in themselves, really made it difficult to prevent, pressing multiple keys at the same time. The keys of the Milestone were not so flat, and if they were a bit rounded like that of the Nokia E71 and the E72, I probably would have had an easier time to avoid typos with the device. One major glitch that persisted on the Milestone was that of the backlight dying out. There were times when the phone would automatically restart itself and then the backlight would be completely out. Even when I slid open the keyboard, there was no response from the backlight. I did eventually discover that taking out the battery and putting it back in was the only way to solve it. As much as I wanted the Milestone to succeed at replacing the Captivate, let's face it, it was impossible. There was no way that it was going to happen. I thought I hit the gold mine with the Milestone because not only do I have stock Android, but I've got stock Android with a hardware keypad and a notification light. So I thought that I was winning on all fronts, but it turns out that I was only kidding myself because at the end of the day, if I'm going to have a hardware QWERTY keypad, I better have a damn good one that's going to be worthwhile. Now, instead of spending more time in talking about why I didn't like the Milestone as much as I like the Captivate, I think that it's safe to say that it's an older phone, and so I think me saying that was not going to prove to be a surprise to anybody. I mean, it just goes to show that even when you do have all of the hardware features in a phone, it has to be able to work for you. It has to be able to sit well with the person that's using it. But on the other hand, I am at least glad that I took the time to get to know the Milestone for a short period of time. Instead of just going into the Verizon store and playing around with it for 2 seconds and then walking out, I really took some time to dig deep into the apps and into the features and into the sliding QWERTY keypad to finally come to a conclusion that is well grounded and not, made in haste. With all of that being said, I will say goodbye to all of you and tell you all to stay tuned for the next video from Trent Sense. All of you guys take care and stay safe.